They told her to observe nothing more than to watch and document the arrival of the human delegation to the rimworlds, where apex creatures still roamed, where jungles grew thick over the ruins of old wars and suns baked the metal bones of fallen titans. Her name was Kazari. She was of the Velen race, known for their silence and memory. She had seen things devour ships whole. She had witnessed wormstorms that could shear planets. Yet she did not speak of fear, not until she met the one who walked alone from the human vessel, bare-armed, bare-headed, carrying nothing but a long object. She could not name the others in her team, made jokes, whispered about the fragile-looking thing that Earth had sent to represent their strength. But Kazari only watched because there was something strange in the way he moved. Slow, gravity obeyed him more than others. The rimworld forests never stayed quiet. Not truly. There was always some creature, hissing, chirping, or thudding through the underbrush until the day it all went silent. Kazari had been recording the human from a height, watching him set up a crude camp near the river where apex predators came to drink when it grew hot enough to boil blood. She had seen one such beast from above once, 12 meters high, armored, with plates that could crush tanks. A creature engineered in war, bred from carnage, shaped by extinction. And yet here it came now, hulking and drooling, with eyes like hollow stars, and the human looked up slowly, stood slowly, stepped forward without fear. And in that moment, Kazari felt something ancient stir in her. The predator rushed with a roar that shook the air, and Kazari did not look away, because what came next was not something one should witness through a lens. He did not dodge, at least not in any way that made sense. The beast lunged, and the human twisted sideward, the long object in his hand split into two blades, forged of something her scans could not read, and they hummed, not with energy, but intent. They cut, not with heat, but will. He moved like a whisper, like a storm, with eyes locked onto the predator's throat. His arms moved faster than her eye could track. He ducked under a claw that could have snapped a battleship cannon and drove one blade deep into the thing's lower jaw and out through the top of its skull, and it screamed with a voice not its own. Kazari could not breathe, she could only record, and even her lens blinked in disbelief. The predator did not die, not then, not easily. It tore the blade free from its face with one mighty wrench and roared, blood spraying over the trees, melting bark and boiling leaves. But the human did not flinch. He moved around it, dancing, stepping, slicing one blade for tendon, one for armor joints, and wherever he struck, the predator screamed again, not in pain, but confusion. It had never been wounded, it had never bled, it had never feared. Kazari knew because she had studied it, she had watched it tear through armored divisions, but now it bled. It bled under the hands of something soft and small and impossibly fast, and she wondered if this was what humans meant by defiance. She saw the human stagger once when the tail hit his side and crushed a tree behind him, but he rose again, silent, without a scream or growl, just breathing and watching the predator, which was limping now, limping and panting and shaking its head to clear the pain. He walked toward it, not ran, not charged, just walked like the ground, knew he owned it, and he said something then to the creature, words that her translator failed to render, and it heard him, and it tried to flee. But he would not allow that. He moved like finality itself, blades gleaming with burning fluid as he leapt onto its back, and drove steel into spine, nerve, and memory until it dropped to its knees and roared one last time. When it fell, the ground cracked, trees snapped, and silence returned, the kind of silence that screamed in her bones. Kazari descended slowly, unable to stop shaking, unable to believe what she had just recorded, and when she reached him, he was kneeling beside the corpse of the thing, with hands soaked in its life, with eyes that glowed not with power but sorrow. He looked up at her, not triumphant, not proud, just tired, and asked if it was over, and she nodded, because what else could she Say the galaxy's most dangerous predator lay in ruins, and the human who did it looked like he had carried a burden older than language. They did not believe her at first. Not the officials, not the analysts, not the generals. She transmitted the footage and the report. And still they doubted, until they slowed the frames, until they measured the impact speed, until they analyzed the creature's corpse, and saw wounds no known weapon could inflict. Then the silence came not from fear, but from awe. And across the systems, the name of the human spread, not as a warrior, but as something else. A force, perhaps, or a warning. Kazari watched the broadcasts and interviews, none of which captured what she saw that day, none of which understood the way he moved, not with rage, not with joy, but with necessity, like something ancient had spoken to him, and he had simply obeyed. Years passed, and the Predator's skull was placed in the human embassy on Veln Prime, a reminder, a symbol. But to Kazari it was more than that. She returned to the Rimworld forest, often stood by the broken trees, touched the scars in the ground where the beast had fallen. She would remember the way he looked at her, not like a savior, not like a soldier, but like someone who wished someone else had done it instead. She never learned his name, not truly, and maybe that was right, because whatever he had been that day was not a man, not a hero, not even a weapon. He had been a story, one she carried always, one she told, not with words, but with silence. And when others asked what she saw that day, she only ever said this: I saw the truth of fear and what walks beyond it. The years dulled the galaxy's awe, but not hers, because Kazari still saw him in dreams. Saw the way he moved through death, like he had always known its shape and weight. She had returned again. On the anniversary, not as a reporter, but as someone seeking closure, she stood at the edge of the river where the trees had regrown around the skeleton of the battlefield, and the light filtered through new leaves as if nothing had ever happened. And yet it had. She had changed. The galaxy had shifted, and humans were no longer underestimated, not after what he did. And then she heard a sound, a soft crunch of soil. And she turned, half expecting a memory. But it was him, older, quieter, wearing no blades, no armor, just the look in his eyes that said he remembered too. They stood together without speaking, and in that silence something passed between them, something final. He looked at the forest, looked at the sky, and said softly, I never wanted to be that kind of story. And she replied without hesitation, but we needed it anyway. And he smiled for the first and only time and walked away. Not into the jungle, not into the past, but into the light of a new day. And Kazari watched him go, knowing this time would be the last, and knowing she would carry the truth of him forever. Because the galaxy remembered monsters, but she remembered the man who stood in their way and did not flinch, even when it broke him inside. And that was how it ended, not with battle, not with screams, but with peace finally earned and silence finally understood.